for those Italian cypress. What do you think a stand of Italian cypress is going to do to this house?
Yeah.
And do the homeowners know? It's an education.
Yeah, because they're so nice.
Your doormat, right?
Oh.
Okay, catch an ember, it'll burn down your house. Potted plants hanging from your eaves with that wood mesh.
Yeah.
That can burn your house down. This is a picture of, this was taken in Christmas time. There was a Christmas wreath on the door.
Okay.
Thankfully, the fire department was there. The Christmas wreath caught an ember.
When we replaced our fence, a lot of the houses have a fence, a wooden fence that comes up and touches the
We're going to talk
house.
about that. Yep. That
We
5 foot
we
wooden
replaced
fence.
that 5 feet with brick or with stone on our place because of that.
Yep. Here we've got mulch and plants and a wooden deck that an ember will catch here, set this on fire, and all of a sudden the underside of your house is on fire. Something as simple as mulch against your house. Now, up until a few years, that's what we pushed. In fact, Berkeley, I actually was doing this presentation several years ago, and Cal Berkeley has done a tremendous amount of work on fire science study and information. They still had it on their website to put wood mulch around your property to keep the weeds down, keep the vegetation down. Well, we now know that simple as bark mulch next to your house. And this is a case where a fire went through 3 days prior. There's mulch, no vegetation next to the house, just mulch. And an ember caught here. And 3 days later, the fire flared up, went underneath the house, and started the underside of the house on fire. 3 days later. Now, I'm also an arson investigator. And if all the houses burned in the area except for one, and 3 days later that house burned down, what am I gonna think?
Yeah.
Right? Well, that wasn't the case. It was an ember. Yes, ma'am.
The mulch. What about that rubber mulch?
It's
Is that
combustible.
bad?
It can
It's
burn.
combustible.
It can?
It
Okay.
can burn.
Hotter.
Thank you, Denise. Yeah, actually, Denise is the one that called my attention to it because I got it.
We're gonna show you some examples.
Yeah, but I was told from Home Depot that it was fireproof. I know.
They got their money.
Yeah. Do you need it to be fireproof?
So
Then it's
what would
fireproof.
you,
Whatever you want.
what would you suggest to put there in
We're
place
gonna
of
show
that?
right now.
Okay.
So IBHS put these pictures together. Show your typical home now, where you've got your deck, you've got your azaleas out there, your bark mulch, your Italian cypress ready to go. Beautiful home. This is going to be the new standard. Gravel. Not well. So that's a good point. Is it pretty?
No.
So I think it's beautiful.
I'm sure.
Okay, but I'm a 36-year career firefighter who, my last strike team, I lost 11 homes out of 12 in 30 minutes. Absolutely. So it's even hard to talk about. It breaks our heart. Firefighters do not ever want to lose homes. And just know the impact that has on every single family and everything that is lost. It's overwhelming for each family. So for me, I look at that and I think, wow, that's awesome. It's beautiful. So I think back to, remember the seatbelt law when it came in back in the 80s? What happened when they said, okay, new California law, you have to wear a seatbelt? Did everyone say, oh, good idea, I'm going to wear my seatbelt?
No.
No, right? It's my car. I'm driving. I have a right to my own. I can do what I want, right? Well, the state said, well, we'll go one step further. I'm going to give you a ticket if you don't. Remember the big controversy?
Yeah.
All right, now fast forward 30 years. If you got into a car today and you forget to click your seatbelt, does it feel weird?
Yeah.
You're like, ooh,
Plus
something's wrong.
The car tells you.
Something is wrong. I don't feel comfortable. I'm putting that seatbelt on. That's what this is where we're heading. And it may take 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, where you look at this house and go, I'm uncomfortable with this. I know I am, because I have a background in it. But through education, and as we move forward in this realm of fire safety, we're going to look at that and say, what a beautiful home.
Is that a bush at the far back left?
of the house.
Here?
No, yeah. Well, now, yeah, the bottom one.
The bottom, no, that's a shadow.
From
That's a
the-
shadow. So we are moving towards, now this may be a little extreme, and I know it does look extreme to you.
I think some enterprising entrepreneurs are going to come up with some
Yes.
brilliant, good-looking
Absolutely
things to
they are.
do. It's going to
Yes.
create jobs. It's going to make life better.
Industry is going to
They will
respond.
fill the void.
They will respond.
They rock.
But it's going to get to a point where that becomes socially unacceptable. Germany. Two things Germany is known for. Autobahn, beer drinking. You know what they don't have a lot of in Germany?
DUI.
They don't have DUIs.
Yeah.
Because it's so socially unacceptable to get caught drinking and driving, you wouldn't dare drink and drive. Because it's a social issue. This needs to become a social issue. If you come in and do this to your house and you spend the money and you know you're safe. The slides I showed earlier where the vegetation wasn't burning, but the fire was going from house to house to house, and that's your neighbor's house, and because they keep their house that way, it threatens your house. It needs to be a social, well, it is a social issue. So that's through education. I'm going to get off that soapbox. Okay. So this is an estate in Altadena, a multi-million-dollar. No, this is Jay's house. We started working on Jay's house, and we started experimenting some of the things that we can do to keep the creeping fire and start working on that 0 to 5. And that's one of the first steps that Jay did. Here's an example. Okay, I've got concrete here. I've got gravel. I've got my walkway. I know that if an ember lands anywhere in here, it's just going to go out. There's nothing for it to spread to, so it will attack that home.
But what happens if the ember ends up on the roof or on the
We're
wall?
getting there. We're getting there.
Again, I'm asking.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Okay? You got to provide that 5 feet of clearance.
There's a little part on different ways that the way fire travels. So he's covering the embers right now.
I'm going a little
And
step
then
by step,
the
baby
step by
steps.
step.
I don't want to overwhelm you. I know, and I love the fact that everyone's riveted and asking questions.
Yes.
I'd love to just walk away right now and you guys are just, you're going to need therapy. No, we're going to get you through it. By the end of today, you're going to feel great. So,
What's to the left of that 5 feet?
So, I'm not going to address the vegetation. There is an issue there.
Okay.
The reason I've got this is to show that there's a separation. Okay? And I like to tell the story of my mom's house. She loves camellia bushes. You know, the camellias with the beautiful flowers on. And she had them planted up against the house. So they grew up, let me stand up here. So the camellia bushes will grow up past the window. So when you're on the street and you see the camellia, you see the beautiful green, you see the flowers, it's beautiful. But if we had company over, looking this way at the camellia from the window out, there's no sunshine, there's no leaves. You see the inside of the camellia bush. And I remember as a kid sitting there looking at the sill and seeing the leaves and the spiders building their webs. And I didn't have many friends apparently. But my mother would close the drapes because it's kind of ugly. Well, what if you were to take those camellia bushes that are here and put them 5 feet out? Now, from the street, it looks the same. And from inside, you can look out the window and you see the camellia bushes. Or a lot of people put rose bushes next to their house. And walking up the way, what beautiful rose bushes. And when you're inside the living room talking about your roses, did you see my rose bushes? Oh, let me see. And you have to go to the window and go, oh, your bushes those rose bushes are beautiful. What if you took those rose bushes and put them 5 feet out so you can enjoy them from inside your house? So whatever it is to motivate you to provide that 5 foot of clearance, think of extending the inside of your house out 5 feet and providing that space in between there. So there's different motivations to what we do. Was it fire safe because I put rock in because I didn't want it for drought reasons? Was it the Lahaina house? I didn't want insects, and that created the. There's whatever your motivation to make it fire safe. Do it, live it, share it with your neighbors. This is my house. I did this. I did the same thing. You know, I know what I'm doing. I believe in it. I wouldn't do anything you wouldn't do. I did this on the weekend. This is not something you got to hire a company to do. You can do your 0 to 5 over a weekend. You know, get your kids or grandkids or whoever to come over for a weekend and let's pull out all the plants next to the house, and then we got a clean slate. Now what are we gonna put back in? Okay, this is a very hot day. It was 105. I don't know if you can tell my dogs are there watching me, but yeah, this is my house. This is the owner of our company. Okay, not all, and he had this vegetation here. He put the 0 to 5. He's actually a wildfire prepared home, which we'll talk about in a minute. But this is the president of our company. It's like the old hair club for men. Not only is he the president, he's also a client. Yeah. Back to our little salmon friend, Drought Buster, right? He thought he was doing well. Oh, we lost his home.
Oh.
Ah, shocker. Shocker. The fence made it,
Yeah.
but he lost his home.
Would go.
But he didn't have any vegetation next to his house.
His roof's on fire.
Here's a wildland firefighter looking at the vegetation next to the house that's not burning. You can tell they've actually broken in the front door and have walked the first floor of the house. There's no smoke here. They make sure everyone's out. But the attic and the second floor are on fire. And again, there's no 15 firefighters there to put it out. It's just him and maybe 2 or 3 other guys that have to watch it burn.
The garden hose.
The garden hose is not going to do anything.
I know.
This is Laguna Niguel, the coastal fire, coast fire, 2 years ago. 21 homes. They were upwards of $6 million. Every single house. The attic, turned into the second floor. All of them were the attics. The vegetation on the property remained. In fact, in this picture, the first floor is fine. There were stucco houses with tile roofs, and they were burning from the inside out. And none of the vegetation, not even the palm trees, were on fire. So it wasn't radiant heat. It wasn't direct flame contact. It was embers. The attic's going. The attic's down into the first floor, down into the second floor. We can't fight this house fire. We're trying to fight a wildfire. And there's 21 of them going. We don't have the resources. The house is gone.
I want to emphasize something you said about embers. We survived the Malibu fire a few years ago. And the fire went through. After dark came out, the fields were glowing.
With embers.
Yeah.
For days.
Yeah.
Yep. Here's an example. This is Paradise, California. Okay. This is, a big market. I don't remember exactly, but let's say this is like a Home Depot, maybe a CVS, and then a little strip mall. They have 600 feet of clearance of an asphalt parking lot. So there's no direct flame contact. There's nothing bringing the fire to it. And there's really no radiant heat that's being produced against a commercial building. Yet it all burned to the ground during the Paradise Fire.
Because ember went to the roof or because
Embers, right here. Attic and foundation ventilation.
Vents.
We have to ventilate our attic and our foundations for energy. Well, for energy, for mold and mildew. It's part of the house system to ventilate all the heat out of the attic, and it brings the moisture out. So we have to ventilate the attic. But that ventilation, bringing that air in, will bring those embers in. And those pictures that I just showed you of the homes burning and the vegetation not burning, and the miracle house in Laguna, the house burnt, but not the vegetation. It's because the embers got into the structure and set it on fire.
So are these examples of good ventilation?
These are types of ventilation. So you've got your gable vents, your dormer vents. These are very typical. We were talking about these earlier, the little circle vents in your eaves. This one's in Sierra Madre. This is a stucco house with heavy timber construction, tile roof, but because that vent had 1/4-inch mesh, it was vulnerable, just as vulnerable as a wooden house. So these are different types of vents, and this is where the problem is.
Okay. So
Prior to 2007, houses with vents had 1/4-inch mesh, which allowed an ember the size of a 1/4-inch to get into the structure. And an ember that size has enough energy in it to remain burning and to set the inside of the house on fire. We know this from science. So in 2007, in the California Building Code Section 7A, we started addressing this using ember-resistant vents. And it went to 1/8-inch mesh. Now it's ember and fire-resistant vents. We were talking to someone earlier. There are several manufacturers. There's 3. Actually, there's 4. I think O'Hagan. There's 4 manufacturers that make vents that are tested, ASTM and 7A tested for ember resistance that are on the market today. There's also, we'll talk about it in a second, a new mesh that's just got approved about 5 weeks ago. Got its ASTM and 7A approval for retrofitting. We'll have these up here so you can come see them. So we can retrofit with different ember resistant vents. Again, our company, we're not a Brand Guard company or a Vulcan company. We know them all. We've used them all based on availability, based on cost, based on style. We develop a plan for the house, not for how many vents we can sell. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So this is a vent that is a gable vent. This is looking inside the attic, 1/4-inch mesh, and we were able to retrofit it with the 16th inch approved mesh. Now this just got approved about 5 weeks ago. So insurance companies aren't approving this yet. As things come into the market and as things get approved, it takes a little time for everyone to catch on. So as of right now, I don't think there's any insurance companies that recognize the retrofit, but it's coming because we need solutions.
So that doesn't melt, it just keeps things
Correct.
coming in.
Yeah, it's stainless steel. It's a product that came out of Australia. It's very effective. It's stainless steel, so it's corrosion resistant. If you go get the mesh that, like at Home Depot, the galvanized, you can still burn through galvanized steel.
So the vent itself, it's not what you change. You just, it's the mesh specifically.
In this case, this is what we did. Yes.
It's just the mesh what really
Yep.
is
So
important.
we can retrofit or replace new, and depending on the code, depending on your insurance company requirements, based on the science.
Yeah, and exposure. So what exposure you have for this thing? That's what they do real well. Is the solutions that they have are fitted for that. For other type of exposure, another vent might be needed.
Yeah.
But for that specific case, that would have your.
We didn't need to go to the expense of a vent that had the honeycomb and the intumescent paint. This is 25 feet off the ground on the side of a house with no exposure. I'm good. Fire's not going to get there anyway. Embers are, so we were able to retrofit. Much more cost effective. But it's a case by case. I can't come in and say this is the answer. It's not. It's a answer. These are all pieces of a puzzle. Some are appropriate, some aren't. And it's not a one size fits all at all.
And that might work on one side of the house, but on the other side of the house, you might have another house that is very close to you that might burn. Now you got to consider flame and ember
and radiant heat.
So the solution might be different. For that
So
side.
it's again based on the code is a general. This is what you should do, and it applies to everybody. Some it's good, sometimes it's not. It's very generalized. It needs to be a specific plan to your house. Makes it more effective, more efficient, more cost effective to do it that way too. That way you're not doing something you don't need to do. So this is on my last fire strike team. This is in the Sequoias. That's actually my team. We're doing a scratch line, providing 5 feet around that house when the fire comes through. We actually have this on video from a Ring camera. When this is about 30 minutes later, what happened was this was open underneath the house, and they just had lattice work, and embers went underneath, set the house on fire, and we have it on video showing that the underside of the house caught on fire and took it out. So this is that same mesh. This is the deck at my house. If you've got a deck under 4 feet, and especially even worse if it's, you've got a little gap under there like this, what happens is wind will blow and leaves and debris will catch under there. And because it's under your deck, you don't even know it's there, right? I don't know who goes down and looks underneath your deck with a flashlight. Well, wherever the leaves end up going, that's where the embers are going to go. And we've seen where you've got a deck attached to a house, and the underside of the deck where you can't even get to, it's on fire. Because there were leaves under there I didn't even know, and embers found them, and now this deck is fully involved. It started the house, and I don't have the 15 firefighters, and the house goes to the ground. So the answer to that is you can retrofit with a 16th inch mesh. You clean out underneath there. You put this mesh in. Now the leaves aren't going to go in there. Also in a fire, the embers aren't going to go in there. Yes.
What about Trex decks?
So
Does that keep? Would that burn?
So, yes, they have two. There's on the Cal Fire website. They have a material listing. Trex has two. We just looked at them the other day. That are 7. It's called WUI approved or 7A compliant, and they're non-combustible. The flame spread under 25. So they do have. So it's not any Trex. So
Right.
it's important that if you're in the wildland and you go to Home Depot or wherever you're going to order it, you tell them, I need it to be WUI compliant or 7A compliant. Trex has 2 of them.
Trex is the top of your
Correct.
deck,
That's the top covering.
and Rich is talking about what gets underneath your deck, which is all that material that gets in there.
Right.
And I do the same thing in my house. Another benefit is critters.
Yep.
I don't get raccoons or anything like they used to go in there. They have to go somewhere else because they cannot get in.
Because you screened it off.
I screened it.
That's a great point also about that 0 to 5.
And snakes, I used to have kind of rattlesnake going there. And I don't have to go fish it out and try to get the rattlesnake out.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they cannot get in there.
And I failed to mention on the 0 to 5, by removing that vegetation, you no longer have water irrigation next to the house. So your house is dry. So when you've got water next to your house, that's where termites will come in and they'll survive. Well, if you've got no vegetation and you're not watering, it's just gravel, you're solving an insect problem as well. Ants, termites, there's no water. They can't survive. So it keeps them away. And dry rot, no rotten wood underneath your house. So it has other benefits. Gutters. We all, just before the rainy season, that's when we look at our gutters, right? Because we want to get all the debris out because we want them to work, get the water off the roof, and shed it away from the house. After the rainy season, next year, we're good. Well, in the springtime and the summertime, debris gathers into those gutters, and now you've got a fuel inside that gutter that'll catch an ember. Wherever the leaves are, the embers are going to be there. You don't even know it because you haven't been checking your gutters because it's not going to rain. Now you've got a fire that burns up against the roof and sets the roof on fire. IBHS did tests with this. This is a metal gutter with debris in it. It set the roof on fire. This is a plastic gutter with debris in it. It set the roof on fire, and it wasn't done because it melted, fell to the ground, and set the base of the house on fire. So gutters we don't really think about them until the rainy season, but gutters need to be non-combustible. Metal gutters with metal guards over them to keep the debris out. Okay? And that's very important.
Rich, may I
Yes.
say? One, you don't have to go out there and do the work.
There you go.
And then remember the station, how many times we got calls, person down, sir, what you were doing to clean up my gutters? And usually it's a severe injury
Oh, yeah.
because it's 20, 10 feet of high fall.
Well, there's a commercial for leaf guard or whatever. They have the seminar. Dad, I told you don't do that. Yeah. Yeah, so you don't have to maintain your gutters after that. So that's good.
Don't those metal things get clogged up with junk though?
No, it's kind of cool. We were looking at this when we first got this one. The designs they have on these, this is pretty, right? It's not pretty. Nobody's gonna see it. It's not why they put the design in. The way they design these, it sheds the leaves away and maintains the water. They're very effective. Because when I first looked at it, I said, that's kind of fine mesh. I'm sure water's gonna just roll right over. It doesn't.
And mud can go through too then, huh? They don't,
It's pretty fine mesh.
yeah.
It's pretty fine mesh.
Mud's not gonna, if you use the specific type of gutter guard that we have, and it has a micro mesh. And so it's different from the types of gutter guards that they have just standard in the Home Depot and stuff. But we have tested these, and if you'd like, you could even, you can test it here with some mud or some water. We can make some, but you'll see that the water goes directly through. It doesn't even beat up.
Okay.
So it is going to filter any kind of debris, and especially the particles that come off the asphalt or whatever your roof's made of. During a rain, those particles come off with the water. It does filter those particles as well. So if you look at it, you can look at it closely. It's
We've got some
yeah.
samples up here you
But
can
it
look at in a little bit.
does, yeah, if you look in your gutter, you'll see all the sand, possibly depending on your roof type, and it does filter that out. So, yeah.
It's not the mesh only, but it's the design on the mesh itself that it helps move the water there. However, you should check it out once in a while because something might get stuck. Sometimes you have a branch that fell down in there. That
or something hit it
or something
and caused
hit
it to
it.
go cockeyed a little
They
bit.
still need to be checked.
Yeah.
Just
but it's not.
It's not
a
an
lot
open
less.
gutter. It's not an open gutter.
Yeah.
Eaves. This is why we're here, isn't it? That's how this is the nexus of getting us here. We were talking about eaves. How many have got notified by your insurance company about the eaves? Yeah, there are a couple insurance companies, State Farm and Allstate. We know we've started getting calls. Farmers and Allstate wanting to requiring the box the eaves. Now I gotta tell you, insurance companies, I did 3 seminars this week to insurance companies and insurance brokers. I did Chubb and Alliant and another group up in Santa Rosa up north. So we're also educating insurance companies, okay, on a couple of different things. Number one, an insurance company will insure a house in Florida from a hurricane that they can't really predict. They can't predict how big it's going to be, or when they do, it's too late. And it doesn't matter if they predict it because they can't change it. If it's a 5, it's a 5. And I can't do anything to change its direction. I can't do anything to fight against it. It's coming. And it'll take out your house. And you'll insure that. Take that same methodology to a tornado. I can't tornado-proof a house, but they'll insure it. And I can't do anything to stop the tornado or move it. Floods, same thing. We can't flood-proof a house. Floods are going to come. I can't really stop the flood. But for wildfire, I can fireproof a house. I can predict where the wildfire is going to be. I can do things before the wildfire starts to lessen its intensity. And guess what? I've got the best, most professional firefighters on this planet are in California. And they're going to be between your home and that fire and doing something about it. They got planes dropping fire retardant. And that's the home you won't insure? Another soapbox I got to get on it. So we work with insurance companies to insure them. Look, we can reduce your risk. You know, how do insurance companies make money? They sell insurance. Well, Allstate's is not renewing in California. They're not any new. State Farm.
Farmers has a limited number that they.
So these insurance companies are having to limit their liability. And there's a whole other discussion about that. But we're working with insurance companies to talk them off the ledge.
Thank you.
Right? And the other thing, we had a client over in Beverly Park. Big house. I mean, this is like an $80 million house. This is nothing that, LA County firemen, I think, own it. That's an inside joke, by the way. But here's his house that's not that old. It was stucco, slate tile roof. They had great vegetation management. The vegetation management was a golf course around it. Right? And the insurance company said, your insurance is $400,000 a year, which was normal. They were good with that. They wanted to double it to $800,000 a year. Got the owner's attention. Unless they put this sprinkler system on the house and spend $250,000 on a system that's going to spray water out of the eaves. So we get called in. Jay and I were on this one. And we met with the property manager and said, okay, this is silly. That is not going to do anything for you. Now you do have some vents and some other things you can do. And I think, the price, they did some little things. But we were able to get a hold of Cincinnati and show the science behind why are you doing this? and they insured them. They didn't have to put the sprinkler system on.
Nice.
Okay. The insurance companies are going to be listening to whatever the latest is at the conference they went. And if you've got a company that's got a real good marketing team and can convince that insurance broker, I got the magic bullet. I got this miracle oil that if you use this, it's gonna. And if you can convince them enough, all of a sudden, insurance company goes, miracle oil. Everyone paint their house with this stuff, or I'm not going to insure you. We're working with insurance companies to come to the reality of the science and the simple things to be simple. Also, there is the other extreme where the insurance company says, "Yeah, I need you to. We need you to replace your vents." And we got out there and said, "This house is 18 months old. It already has vents. We don't care. We want them replaced." So we also work with insurance companies. Okay, little side note there. Boxing of eaves. So in the California Building Code, if you build a new house, the eaves have to be protected. They have to be boxed or non-combustible. Do they still have heavy timber in there?
It's, if it's enclosed, yeah.
But you have to enclose it. Okay, so this is heavy timber. So instead of this being a 2x6, it's a 4x6. And instead of this being 3/4 of an inch, it's a true 2.5 tongue and groove. So non-combustible. This is boxed in with stucco. What happens with eaves is embers get up under here, and it creates what's called an eddy. Actually, the next slide's going to show you. I'll explain it. Well, let me go there now. Creates an eddy up in here, this little void spot. And embers will get in there, and the wind will actually hold the embers in place. That's one of the problems with eaves. There's a whole other discussion about the vents, but we're talking about just the eave construction. So in this case, this home survived because there were no vents in the eave, and it was heavy timber. So the thicker the wood, the longer it takes to heat up to combust. And now there was fire department intervention here, no doubt. But that shows how heavy timber or the stucco eave prevents the eaves from catching up. That's where that comes from. So new homes have that. And so we're starting to see insurance companies require boxing of eaves. Some of it's good, some of it maybe overkill. Again, it's a case-by-case basis. It's not a one-size-fits-all. That's where the problem is. This is what a boxed-in eve looks like. You can take your existing eaves, you run stringers out this way. This becomes non-combustible, such as stucco or James Hardy board, any non-combustible product, and you can retrofit your house.
That aluminum sheeting.
Does it burn?
I'm asking.
Aluminum? 1,200 degrees before it starts on fire.
So you
Now-
can put aluminum.
You could, but I'm thinking on the science. Is that going to be code compliant if it's required by the code?
Yeah.
And
Local.
it's going to be up to the local AHJ, authority having jurisdiction, whether that's approved. Okay, so I'm talking to the science versus the code. I say yes, aluminum's okay, but an insurance company may come in and say, you know what, 7A California Building Code doesn't recognize that. So, yeah, but it's going to work for the science. It's not required. It's not recognized by the code. Therefore, we're not going to recognize it, which is the right thing for them to do right now because they don't have any other thing to go by other than what's code.
How about painting the eaves?
Great question. That's
Well,
a question that came out.
I heard that there are like non-combustible paints
So
for
there,
the walls
okay.
and eaves. Is that true?
So there is a paint out there called an intumescent paint. When it heats up to about 3 to 500 degrees, I think it depends on the different paint, it expands and creates a char.
Bubbles.
So this vent, and you can't see through it. There's
Those small round ones you could see through.
this one. So this honeycomb that's in this vent is covered with intumescent paint. Now when it heats up, oh yeah, we've got some bigger ones here. When it heats up, these little cells close off, and so, but this is also isn't exposed to any kind of weather, and so and it's in an enclosed area, so it's effective. So the question has come up: can you take this same paint and just paint your eaves so that makes them fireproof? Doesn't work that way. Okay, they do use intumescent paints for rated corridors in hospitals sometimes or schools. But it swells up. It'll actually lock a door into place so it won't work. The problem with it sounds like a good idea. The problem is there's no weather testing on it. You may paint your vents, and it might work this year, but next year, because of sun and rain and weather and everything, then it's no longer going to work. So, and unless it's tested and approved, we're not going to recommend it.
But the weather doesn't get up into your eaves, and the sun doesn't.
Humidity
Okay.
goes from dry to wet. That changes it.
Yeah.
Heat, cool, and then it expands in the heat and then shrinks again. So you got heat, you got humidity, you got wind drying it out. So, and bottom line, there's no testing.
I didn't hear Rich say that it doesn't work. What I heard him say was it hasn't been approved.
Yeah. We've got a patio cover that is the whole back part of our house, and it's basically one big eave. So it's like, we got to do something about that.
When you're saying about the vents, but about that type of painting for the eaves and the walls, no?
Not approved. Now, industry is working on that, and I want to tell you that next year we got this paint that we can go and, oh my God, this stuff's a game changer. I want that game changer, but it's not there.
Not yet.
There was another company that was out there that was advertising a paint. It was probably an intumescent. They're all over Facebook. We can paint your house and it'll survive 3,000 degrees. Well, it shows I'm painting a stucco house. I don't need to paint stucco. It's cement. It's not going to burn. But they were charging like $40,000 to paint your house in this magic paint. You got to be careful about the snake oil out there. And that's where we do a lot of vetting of that. We're not going to use something. We're not associated with a manufacturer at all. Well, kind of, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Yes, Jay?
Just real quick, remember this is not a single solution, it's the additional solutions.
Correct.
It's not only your seat belt, but it's your car that collapses, it's your car that has airbags, that give you the best chances of survival.
The good tires.
Yeah. All that together give you the best chances of survival. That's what Rich is conveying right here. It's taking it apart so you can see each one of them. But then you paint your whole house with intumescent paint and you don't know. What do you do to compromise that? So we have homes that they're brand new or newer homes, but you put a vegetation or the wrong type of windows or leave the window open or the wrong vent, and all that other work that you did, it goes away. So you just have to do each one of them. And in my case with my insurance company, they didn't force me, they just said, well, you don't close your eaves, we may not renew you. And may means they will not renew you. So I was able to keep my insurance by enclosing the eaves with the proper materials. So,
and as Jay was saying, it's a coupled approach. Okay? You can't harden your home and leave the vegetation. You can't do your vegetation and leave the home. They work together. They must happen at the same time in order to reduce your risk. And we've had clients where we've gone out and they want us to put fire retardant on the vegetation. We got out there and says, actually, you got to trim and cut back the vegetation, and then we'll apply it. I don't want to do that. I want fire retardants. We're not a good fit, so we walked away. We're not going to do that. So you have to do all of these things. And it's a puzzle, okay? It's the eaves. It's the siding. It's the windows. It's the 0 to 5. It's the vents. It's all these things together. And we get questions oftentimes, well, I can only do a little bit. I can't afford the whole thing. Okay, make it a 2-year plan, 3-year plan. We can help look at your house and find out what is the most effective one that you can start with. But if someone says replace your vents, you're good. No, it's more than just the vents. That's like having 4 bold tires and going, I'm going to replace that right front tire and I'm good. You're not sure if it was the right front tire was the one that was going to, maybe it was this one. So one of them reduces your likelihood, but that doesn't make the risk go away. It needs to be all of these things to harden your home, because you don't know where that impact's going to come from. So here's an example of a home that managed the vegetation, a lot of succulents, but the home wasn't hardened and it burned to the ground. And we've seen a lot of pictures this morning of that, right? Here's a home that was hardened, but the vegetation created enough energy that the home wasn't going to survive that much energy. So it's a holistic approach. It's home hardening and vegetation management. Both must be done. You ever had a really good cupcake? Like a vanilla cupcake that doesn't even need frosting, right? That's home hardening and vegetation management. You got to have them both to make that really good cupcake. Now, what's the next best thing on that cupcake? The frosting. So there are other things we can do to make that cupcake better. One of them is long-term fire retardant. And there's several companies out there doing this, and there's 3 different manufacturers that are approved. This is the icing on the cupcake. But like our friend who wanted just the icing and not do the not the cupcake, I'm not going to let you sit down with a spoon and a bowl of frosting, April. You got to have the cupcake first. Then we add on the frosting and the sprinkles and everything else. So let's talk briefly about long-term fire retardant. Our motto, we have coffee cups that have this: an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of suppression. The fire guys love to hear that. So we've talked today about our 100-foot, our 30-foot, our 0 to 5. Once that's all in place, the frosting, we can make the remainder of the vegetation on the property non-combustible with long-term fire retardant. This tree, while it's far enough away for the radiant, it's not going to get you direct flame. It's not going to get you the radiant, but when it burns, it'll create an ember cast. So we're going to eliminate the ember cast even further. And fire retardant is put in place based on the topography, based on the fire history, based on the vegetation, based on the structure. So it's not just go in and just paint it. There's a plan. Okay? The fire retardant we use is Phosgec. So Phosgec's been dropped out of airplanes since the 60s. It's the red stuff you see coming out of the airplane. That's the exact same thing that we use, only it doesn't have the red dye. It's USDA approved. They drop it out of aircraft. It's got the anti-corrosives. They can load it into aluminum airplanes, and there's no concern there. It's biodegradable. It's actually a fertilizer. So once it's washed off, it goes into the ground and helps the plants stay healthy. It's kind of it's the gold standard of fire retardants. It's the most effective and environmentally friendly, and been used for years. It's approved to be used on state and federal protected lands, and dropped in the middle of a forest. So that's got us sold. Doesn't mean that we're just a Phosgec company. I mean, we don't have Phosgec tattoos. Or did you ever get your tattoo?
Yeah, it's in a.
Okay, got it.
I'll show
We'll
you.
talk about it later. We just use the gold standard. There are other ones out there. There is a problem with, like, we won't use more than one because they're like the vents. We'll use all these vents, right? I don't care. On the fire retardants, I can't really mix them. They don't mix well. And they're doing some tests with some of the other companies on the airplanes, and they found out that Phosgec, they used it for this, and then they put this other one in, and it gummed up and caused a problem. So we got to keep our pumps clean and all that. So we use Phosgec. The reason being is that's, and if something's better and we discover something, we'll switch to that too. So
Excuse me.
Yeah.
We had a gentleman come last year and speak to another small group about this sort of product that he sells, and I can't. Do you remember his name?
I wasn't there. Yeah, we were on vacation.
I have it in my records somewhere. But he has a system. I know the Wolf Center here in San Diego uses him. They've done fire retardant around the whole perimeter. He's he's got a crew, but he's a one-man guy.
Chaz?
I don't think that was his name.
Okay. Chaz is down here. He uses Phosgec.
It's probably him.
Yeah, it's probably him.
Now this guy had his own. It was his own product.
His own product.
Oh, yeah, he was like a chemist or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he
That
had
made his
different
own.
systems that he could sell where you could shoot him out. It was long term, but long term to him was a year or maybe 9 months. It wasn't forever.
Wes?
I'm not gonna
Wes
be able to-
Bolson? That's okay.
Anyway, it was
Fortify?
Fortify, Fortress, Komodo.
I think it was
No, that wasn't.
Komodo?
Sounds like a model.
So it could be Komodo.
If you can explain how this is applied, because he had a system where you would set these dispensers up around the perimeter of your property, and based on what the fire reports were, if a fire was coming, you would spray it out over all your bushes, you could spray it around your house.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to be meeting with that company, or a company that does the same thing.
They do it all over the country, and his biggest clients actually are apartment buildings in big cities.
If you can give me that information, at some point,
remember
you'll have my cards up here. We'll look into it.
How long term is the one?
So great question. So it'll last until it's washed off.
Yeah.
So by rain.
Basically his job.
By rain?
So any rain, if it rains, heavy rain, will wash it off. So I've been actually applying Phos-Chek around the Rose Bowl for 31 years. I'm actually one of the people that started the first ground applied program for fire retardant. I've applied it at the 4th of July, just before the fireworks show in the Arroyo Seco and Linda Vista in Pasadena, and then in the Angeles National Forest above Sierra Madre. Applied it 4th of July weekend. Late September, had a vehicle fire in the brush, and the flames were in the brush, and all it did was turn black. It should have been a 5-day event. And when I came out for the investigation, and the engine company says, "It's a miracle," I was like, "No, but you found some religion in it. I'm good with that." And the captain was so proud of his team. I live on it. It was the fire retardant that I put 2.5 months earlier. So,
our insurance company contacted us a year ago, and they said, unless you opt out, what we will do is come out and coat your house at no cost to you, because it's cheaper for us to do that than to pay.
So they've got different pilot programs that came out, and some are offering fire response, some are offering that, and then they're not doing it, and they're just trying different things. In fact, we just participated. April and I participated in Northern California for CSAA, doing that same thing. We had a road trip. I spent a month in Santa Rosa with April one weekend. We left on Thursday morning. We came back Sunday night. The first night we were in San